Hi everybody, I'm Mike McCrory and this is Would You Make It? I made a chess table a couple of years ago with tapered legs and I cut the tapers using a jig on my table saw. In this video, I'll show you how to achieve the same thing using a jointer. It's a quick process with very little setup time that produces repeatable results. So, let's get started. I've already cut the mortises in these table legs because it's a lot easier to clamp the legs in my mortising jig before they are tapered. These legs are 20.5 inches long and the top of the taper will be 5.5 inches down from the top of the leg, so the total length of the taper will be 15 inches. I'll start by marking the midpoint of the taper, which is 7.5 inches from the bottom of the leg. I don't need to mark the top of the taper, but I'm doing that just to help make sure everything is set up correctly. And then I'll put those same marks on all four sides of the legs. These legs are 1 15/16 inches squared, so just slightly under 2 inches. I want the bottom of the taper to be 1 inch by 1 inch, so that means I'll need to cut off 15/16. So I'll divide that by 2 to get 15/32, and that's how much I need to take off each side of the leg. When cutting the tapers on the jointer, I will do that in 2 passes and take half the amount off each time. So I need to divide by 2 again to get 15/64, which is almost 1/4 of an inch. I'll draw a line 15/64 of an inch up from the bottom edge of a scrap piece of plywood that I'll use to check my jointer setup. The scale on my jointer is pretty accurate, so I'll set it to just under 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll make a test cut with my piece of plywood to see how close to the line it is. It's pretty close, but I'll adjust it slightly. This doesn't have to be perfect in this case because the 1 inch bottom of the taper is just an arbitrary number that I chose. Now I'll run the plywood through the jointer to get a straight edge again. Next, I want to slowly move the plywood until it just touches the spinning blade to know where the cutting action begins. And I'll use a pencil to mark that position by putting a line on my fence. Now, with the bottom of the leg, the narrow portion of the taper, facing the blade, I will pass it through the jointer until I get to the midpoint of the taper. I do that slowly and stop when the line I've marked on the leg aligns with the mark that I put on the fence. And then I'll do the same thing on the other 3 sides to complete the first half. So far, I've taken 15/64 of an inch off each side of the leg, but only up to the midpoint of the taper. Next, I'll flip the leg end to end for the second pass so that the top of the leg is closest to the blade. The really important part of this step is to firmly hold the bottom end of the leg against the infeed table of the jointer using a push block, and to keep the top of the leg against the fence. If the top is not against the fence, then the top of the taper will be angled, so you want to avoid that. The top of the leg is angled upward and away from the blade, and it won't come in contact with the blade until the point where the taper begins. It's actually easier to do this with the blade guard removed so that it doesn't collide with the push block. But here's a clip from some Padauk legs that I made a couple of years ago with the blade guard removed, so you can have a better view of what's going on under the blade guard. And now we're back on the walnut legs. So that's all there is to it. It's really an ingenious way of cutting tapered legs to get repeatable results and without having to need a tapering jig for your table saw. It's pretty simple. Just mark the halfway point for the taper, cut off half the amount in the first pass, then turn the leg around and cut off the second half. So I gotta ask, would you make it?